Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. This is I think this is the event of this series that I am personally most excited about. And that's saying a lot because there are some amazing events that have already happened and there's some amazing events yet to come. I would like to say that we have about 650 people registered in the Google form, about 75 in Facebook. And I know that people have been sharing the coded bias link, especially with friends, which is awesome. I can tell that we have folks from at least 13 countries. And that's just the ones I can tell from email and things. US, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Spain, Italy, the UK, Colombia, Canada, Afghanistan, Australia, Poland, Nigeria, and South Africa. We have people from Clarkson and SUNY Potsdam and SUNY Canton and St. Lawrence and Plattsburgh and Purdue and Wisconsin and USC, Indiana, Harvard, Georgia Tech, the Boston Public Library, and local high schools. The reach of these events is truly heartwarming to me. And this event in particular is a rare opportunity, I think. We are giving ourselves permission to tell not just the encouraging you can do anything stories, and we may tell some of those as well, but we're also giving ourselves permission to tell no, this is really hard stories, because we don't want the people we love to be blindsided when things are tough and to feel like it's only them that it happens to. So this panel in particular is inspired by the opening scene of Picture a Scientist. I wonder how many of you have seen that opening scene where Jane Willenbring, who's a geologist, says that she was in her lab wearing her bunny suit and her goggles. She's a very different kind of scientist than I am. And her 3-year-old daughter came in to visit and was so excited. She said, "Mommy, you're a scientist. Wow, I want to be a scientist like you." And she said she just broke down crying. And she told her daughter it was tears of joy, but that wasn't really true. She started crying because she didn't want her daughter to be treated the way she had been treated. And so this panel is about the change we want for each other, the change we want for our daughters, our mothers, our mentors, our mentees, our sisters, our friends, our colleagues. We want better. Just speaking for myself, I don't want vilification particularly. I want acknowledgement. I want apologies. I want growth. I want change. And I won't speak for anyone else on that front. You can want other things too. But the name of this panel comes from the change we want for each other. So we're going to start by introducing one another instead of introducing ourselves, which I'm really excited about. And I think that we're kicking off with, we have 3 mother-daughter pairs here, which is super exciting. And also a wonderful student of mine, well, actually several students of mine, and a wonderful colleague of all of ours. So we're going to introduce each other. Patrice, are you going to kick us off?
Sure, I will do that. So I'm going to be introducing today. Hi, everybody, by the way. This is my daughter, Bria Cole. So Bria is born and raised right here in Potsdam. She is the Training and Professional Development Coordinator for Clarkson University's Chief Inclusion Office. She focuses on inclusion and equity across university departments with staff and faculty and among student groups. Bria will be beginning her PhD journey this fall at Howard University in DC. Okay, sorry, just had to say that. This fall, and in Higher Education and Leadership and Policy Studies program. Her research will include inquiry into how to improve college retention and persistence for African American women, focusing on policy, access to resources, and effectiveness of programming. She received her bachelor's from Clarkson. She received her master's from Georgia Southern and will be beginning her future journey, like I said, in a few months at Howard.
So wonderful.
Thank you. So, since you've been introduced to me, I'm Bria. Hi. I'll be introducing my mom, and thank you for the congratulations. So this is my mom. This is Patrice Cole. She is from Boston, Massachusetts, but has been in Potsdam, New York for the greater part of my life. So if you're from Clarkson, you may have already had the pleasure of meeting my mom. It may have been through her years in service in student administrative services, or her now position as an office manager for the Chief Inclusion Office. If you don't know, Clarkson University is a predominantly white institution. So outside of her role in the office, a lot of her students would consider her to be kind of Clarkson's godmother and a home away from home for a lot of students who come to Clarkson. Which just speaks to her character. She's a very humble and just great person to be around. Outside of Clarkson, outside of her professional career, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a grandmother. And, she's a lot of things, and she's kind of just like the backbone of our household here.
So wonderful. We're so lucky to be together tonight. Esma, are you up next?
Yeah. Hi, Gina. Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk in front of all of you. So I'm Esma Wali. I would like to start introducing my daughter, Mahnoor Ali. Mahnoor is a freshman at Clarkson University also. She has yet to choose her major, and she is in process of talking to her advisors in this regard. Mahnoor was born and raised in rural area, like not the rural, like a part of northern part of Pakistan, and she got her high school education from that part. As far as Mahnoor is concerned, her childhood is concerned, she has been a lovely, very sensitive, very sensible, and very responsible child. Like being born, like both of us being born 19 years apart, like we have been growing together. Like we have like fought together, we have laughed together. Even we are studying together right now. I'm a PhD student and she is a freshman now. So her academic career, like her academic experience so far has been her high school, which she got from Pakistan, and she has been very good at studies. She has been excelling all her courses so far, and that ended up her in getting a very prestigious international scholarship, tuition scholarship at Clarkson. So now she is studying at Clarkson, and she is on like a very good hands-on scholarship. Yeah. And more to talk now. Thank you.
Thank you, Esma. Mahnoor, are you next?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Mahnoor Ali, and I'm going to introduce my mother, Esma. My mother got her education, her college level education, her school level education from her hometown, and she also got her bachelor's degree from her hometown, from a college, and she got her master's degree through distance learning. And now she's here, a PhD student, and also a member of the research group of Professor Gina in Clarkson. And I've always seen my mother hardworking, and I've always seen a consistency in her work and a determination to go and achieve her goal, which is a really big inspiration for me. I have always looked towards her to follow her example and worked consistent and hard work like her. And being a young mother, and even in the early marriage, she has never lost hope in working hard, and she's never thought of letting down her studies or letting down achieving her goals. She has never stopped working hard. And even in the male dominant society, she has made her place in the faculty of the only one university in our city, and also the biggest faculty representing body, which is called the Senate, in which she made her place. And of course, there's really so much to say about her if I go on saying, but I'll just say that she has always paved the way for us so that we won't face very much challenges. She has been facing all the challenges for herself, and meeting all the hurdles. And I would say that she was just picking up all the thorns from the path and the way so that we can walk on it without injuring us our feet or without any troubles.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Well, I am so inspired already by this is just so amazing. And it is my great honor to introduce my daughter, Abigail Matthews. Abby is a second-year PhD student in computer science, just like her mommy did, at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's a Clarkson alum, and she was the first woman to be a director of the Clarkson Open Source Institute. She has been a co-author with me on 3 already published papers, and we have 2 more that are submitted that we're waiting to hear about. And she is also single-handedly, by far, my favorite thing about this pandemic year, because she has been home in New York doing all her classes and her TAing and her research remotely. And without COVID, she wouldn't be. She would have been in Wisconsin. And she is also one of the kindest, most competent people I know. She's my go-to person for almost everything from fun to work. And many days, the key reason I get up and do what I do. And I'm going to tell one quick story about Abby. She took Intro to Computer Science her first semester at Clarkson with me. And she was by far the best student in the class. She totally deserved an A+. And I'll say that my son was also taking 141 that semester, and he did not get an A+. So like don't think I give all of my children A+. He's a wonderful child too, so don't take that wrong either. But I really struggled with whether to give Abby an A+, because it doesn't actually even change your grade point average. It's just this little star. And this was her first semester. And to give her an A+ in my class felt like maybe that's not okay. I really struggled with it. But I looked at it and I said, if it was anyone else, you would have given them an A+ for even less. It's not fair not to give it to her. And when her grades came out, 2 other people had given her A+ that had nothing to do with me in completely different subjects. So she's a rock. She's just amazing. And I'm not the only one who thinks so.
Thank you, Mommy. So now that I've been well introduced, I will introduce my mom, which I could go through and list lots of things that she is. She's a professor, she's a salsa teacher, she's so many things, but really I can just summarize it in one word, which is she's a rock star. And she's just amazing at all she does. She works incredibly hard to be uncompromisingly excellent at everything she puts her hands to. And I think very few people get a chance to see like how much time she really does put into all the things she does. She has one of the craziest sleep schedules I know. Like she will go to bed, sleep hard for like 3 or 4 hours, wake up from like 3 to like 7 in the morning, work, sleep another hour, and then like work the whole rest of the day. In this like crazy way that I'm like, Mom, normal people don't do that. Like normal people get like a full night's sleep. but but she has such dedication to all the things she does. She wants to when she does anything, she wants to do it with integrity. She wants to do it with kindness. She wants to do it thoroughly. And I've always looked up and commended her for all that she puts into the things that she takes on. And that's why it's always been hard for me to watch and see some of the things that happen to her and her jobs and other aspects of her life, because I see how hard she works to be excellent and to be kind to others. So to see her not get the same back is really hard. I'm not the only one who just thinks my mom's a rock star. I'll tell one fun story about my mom is that, and this is just a recent story, I'm a student at another university, a PhD student, and I'm taking 2 classes this semester. And in both of those classes, I have read a paper that she has written. Nothing to do with, me, just like that is what came up in those classes. And in one of the classes I'm taking is distributed systems. And in that class, the instructor didn't like realize until he started like researching like her for the presentation that she was like related to one of the students in the class. And the night before the class we were going to discuss the paper, he reaches out to me and asks if she could come in and talk. And so I got to like have my mommy, bring my mommy to work day, like to school day, like in 2nd grade when you have your parents come in and like you're like, my mommy's a firefighter, my mommy's a doctor. I got to do that in grad school, which I think is a unique thing. But after she came in and talked, I have a couple other project groups and things that I was working on, and in both of them, the women who were in them said to me like, your mom's a rock star. She's awesome. And one of the women who was talking to me said, I just felt so inspired to see like how well your mom has done, that she's a woman, that she has succeeded so well in her field, and that you, her daughter, are here in my class in this school. And that is just incredibly inspiring for me to like keep doing what I'm doing. And that really meant a lot to me, because I think for me, when I think back, if I didn't have such a direct role model and example to keep me going, to realize that some of the things I experience aren't just me, that I'm not alone, I'm not crazy, and that like if she can persist and get through, then I can too, then I don't know if I would have stayed in the field I'm in or at the schools I've been to. So I think representation really matters, and she has been such a great, role model and representative in my life.
Thank you, baby. That was very, very sweet. I'm also going to introduce Izzy Grasso. Speaking of a rock star, Izzy also is a rock star. She is an undergraduate student at Clarkson. She's about to graduate. She's a senior data science student, and she's going to be a PhD student at the University of Washington in the fall. She won an incredibly prestigious National Goldwater Scholar Award, and she just got an NSF Graduate Research Fellowship, which is incredibly competitive, incredibly prestigious. She and I have been working together in research since 2018. We have 3 papers published, 2 accepted and set to be published, and 2 more submitted, which is a pretty amazing track record. And, all of the contributions that I have watched Izzy make, and I'll tell you, I'm going to miss her terribly because she adds so much to our team. And all of the contributions I have seen her make almost never happened because she was almost drummed out of academia by sexual assault. And she lets me say that. And I that's not easy to let someone say. And it's not easy to talk about. And I mourn for the time in her life that was lost. But more than that, I celebrate the amazing path that she's on. That is not going to be her story. Her story is going to be one of being an amazing researcher that makes a huge difference in the world. And finally, it is my great delight to introduce Jen Knack. Jen is an associate professor of psychology here at Clarkson. And over the years, I have gotten to work with Jen on many different things. I think 5 going on 6 years of Young Scholars, which is a week-long experience for high school students in the summers, probably 10 or more years of Project Challenge, which is like 5 Saturdays of classes for high school students. One of my own children has taken classes with her. So I have had many opportunities to see her doing the right thing, even when it's hard and even when no one else is really watching. She is excellent and brilliant and highly effective and insightful, and also one of the kindest people I know. She is a woman who is truly and enthusiastically supportive of the successes of other women. She is strong in a way that is filled with kindness and grace and great generosity of spirit. So that introduces you a bit to the women who I am so delighted to know. And I want to thank them all for the emotional labor that they are all doing to delve into some of the conversations we're going to have together this evening. I thank you all for showing up for that and being willing to have open up and have conversations that aren't always easy. So again, no agenda whatsoever. Basically, watch Picture a Scientist, think about the changes you might want for each other, and say whatever you want. And I think we're going to go around in the same order we did introductions, just to keep things simple, which means the amazing Patrice Cole, I pass the mic to you.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed watching Picture of a Scientist. And the thing, I guess, that I would like to see, or the things that weigh heavy on me, is even though we as a group of people or as women have seen great changes and great strides, we are still fighting the same fight. And with all that's, happening in the world, I mean, it's just different phases to me of the same fight. And it weighs heavy on my heart because, my mother and her mother before her fought, so my life would be different. We did the same thing so that Bria's life would be better than, her journey would be a little bit easier than my journey. And we're still here fighting the same fight. It makes me sad. So that's the change that I would like to see, that we can move past the fighting and actually see some more positive change, especially for our young daughters that are coming up and all the young women that are coming up behind us.
Thank you, Patrice.
Yes, I enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed the film as well. And while watching the film, it was interesting to see how much I was able to resonate with some of the women in the film, specifically the black women in the film. So a lot of the changes or the things that they were talking about seeing are some things that I have noticed as well. And I'm just in kind of like the beginning, I would say the beginning of my professional career still. So looking at it from a standpoint, I guess a lot of people might not have the opportunity to work in the same university or school or place as their mother. But I, working at Clarkson University, can see a lot of the things that women have to deal with directly. I can see how it affects myself and, you know, my mother very personally. Definitely being a Black woman in academia at a predominantly white institution. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I don't see the same opportunities for growth or training opportunities for people who may be established in their careers. And I see that people just getting, you know, advancing at slower rates when that doesn't have to be the case. I think that we can improve on the notion that, you know, people should just be comfortable where they're at just because they were finally awarded a seat at the table, that they should just be appreciative of that seat. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, that people need to be more than just a seat at the table, that people need to be listened to be heard and to be addressed respectfully, and that women in these positions should not be so much of an afterthought. I see for myself and I see for my mom a lot that, you know, ideas are proposed and things go on in their past, and then maybe as women, you know, you're kind of addressed last, or maybe after something has already been pushed through, so you're not given much of an option to be able to speak up about anything because you weren't there for the process. You know, you're kind of just an afterthought, maybe because you need a woman to make a project look a certain way, or you need a woman of color to make a project more appealing to bigger things outside of the university. So things like that, I would like to see more of a change in. I would just like to see people be addressed for their expertise and not necessarily just because they're there.
Thank you so much, Bria. Esma, I think you're up next, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I need to say a lot, but I think the time restricts me to do that. So like I was just noting down some points to say in today's session, and before watching the Picture Scientist movie. And then last night, Manur and I watched that movie, and then suddenly I felt that, oh my God, these are the same points I was trying to note down and I was to say about. And I felt that these are, like, regardless of culture, regardless of society, regardless of the country, like, these are relatable to kind of every woman who have their careers in STEM or maybe any other field, whether these are like in academia, in industry, or like these are students or working mothers, or like these, I think, like being from a different background, be from different cultural background, different society, like I might have different feelings, like different experiences, but eventually I felt that like all of these were focusing on, or eventually these are related to one point that's called gender bias. And I have been through all this, no doubt. Like when you, like, if I relate to the iceberg example in the movie, like, fortunate enough to be like, I didn't go through that iceberg tip, but I have been gone through much of the stuff that was under the iceberg or below the ice. So whether it's like being in a professional life, like I have been gone through all of these, like not being heard, not given the credit what you deserve, and like so many things. Even like as Manu told about me that I was in like being a faculty, but I I was holding another position in my hometown university that was a prestigious position in what should I say, that statutory body that was making the policies of the organization. And I was part of that organization, and I was part of that body, and I had so much responsibilities on me that and I had also the opportunity to do something for my organization, specifically for females who were like suffering, literally suffering a lot in the male, literally the male dominating society. So, and I did a lot and I fought a lot, like for my voice to being heard in that society. And I have been through all these challenges, like to be able to being heard. Like most of the time, the secretary was not supposed to write my opinions or my contributions, what I have been saying in meetings and what has been included in the decision, but that was not being included in the meeting minutes. And after the meeting minutes were finalized, I used to fight with him that why did you do that? So like saying behind all these things is like whether like regardless of profession and like culture and these things, like I think all the women face these challenges and this needs to be sorted out. And secondly, I face these challenges very like, and I am happy that I did that and I took those challenges and opportunities and I made my way like through such a uh, uh, background, like which was kind of male dominant, and I made my way through that, and I was like able to develop a career which like not that much that I wanted to be, but somehow I was on that path on achieving my goal. And eventually I feel that, or I strongly feel that my daughter, I want this change for every woman. I want this change for my daughter also, to like not face these challenges that I have been facing, I have been through. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Esma. Manur?
Yeah, I really liked watching A Picture Scientist last night with my mother, and it was a really good time for me to watch that, as I am going to step into the STEM careers. So it was really good for me to watch that at this time, so that I may know what other women have faced. And I about my background, I have got my education since high school in an all girls school, so I hadn't seen that much inside my school, but I have seen this gender bias in my society a lot, not inside my own home, but in my close relatives, in which girls were scolded like, you're not allowed to do this, you shouldn't do this, why you did that, for things in which boys were not normalized, boys were said nothing to do with. And I also saw this a lot of gender bias in professions, that many of the professions are attributed to boys, like, yeah, you can do that, you can go into anything, because you can do anything afterwards, whatever you study. But girls were raised putting this stigma into their minds, that you have either to go in the medical field and become a doctor, or you have to go and become a teacher, regardless of whatever you study. And most mostly girls are seen to go into the education or and become a teacher later on, or go into the medical field. Even in the medical field, many girls who pursue the medical field, they complete their degree, but they never go into practice. They complete their degree, they are just married and they focus on their family and they just forget their education, and that's really heartbreaking. And I also fell prey to this professional stigma of our society. I also went on to get a medical admission in the medical school, but I couldn't get it because there. And also, this is also another point, that only some seats are available, and a lot of, almost all of the girls, and some of a lot of boys also go for a medical school, and only some of them get the admission, and others are left with nothing in their hands, and they have to go in something they are not interested in. And this leads to severe depression in those teenage girls. And also, this depression always gets, mostly this depression gets unnoticed, because they are just, they just fear of telling these their depression condition to their, even to their families. So the change I want is that girls should be allowed to choose whatever they want to study, what they are interested in. They should be counseled, career counseled from childhood, that you could do anything. It's not that you have to go become a doctor or look after a family, or become a teacher at a private or government school. You can do much more than that. Even my cousins and my friends, they also went for becoming a doctor, going to medical school or an engineering school. And if and when they weren't fortunate in getting the admission, they just went into any field they were not interested. They just got admission, and they just went into the field they got admission, and I don't think they are happy right now. And I want to change for them and all the upcoming generation, that they should be given the right to choose whatever they want and become whatever they want.
Thank you, Manur. I was very much struck, Esma, with what you said about how you made a list of what to say and then you watched the film and then it was the same. And I was also struck that I'm going to say many of the same things that you said, about how I could keep going on and on much more than I'm going to have time. And I was really struck very much by the picture of the iceberg. So there's an iceberg, most of it's below the waterline, a little tip of it is above the waterline. And above the waterline, they listed unwanted sexual attention, coercion, and assault. And that has not primarily been my story, although that is some women's story for sure. But the below the waterline things, which they say that persistent experience of that is just as bad as an incident above the waterline, is what they say in the film. It happens to me all the time. Not getting credit, questioning competence, subtle exclusions, not being invited to collaborate when you have key expertise, being left off an email, name calling, hostility, being passed over for promotions, inappropriate emails, ignored in meetings. And they had other things on that list that haven't happened to me, but there are other things that have happened to me. And I think about another definition of that above the waterline and below the waterline. I think about the stuff above the waterline being things that happened where they're documented in writing, they're captured in a recording, or many people witnessed it. And then below the waterline is all the things that happen that is just in private or no one would say happens. And I can't even get action on the stuff that is in writing, in recordings that were witnessed by many people. And I wish that I wish I could tell this story differently. I really do. I wish. And honestly, I don't think I let myself really tell this story to myself that often about how bad it really is. Because I'm not off like focusing on how bad it is. I'm off getting stuff done. Right? I have the highest H index in my department. For those of you who are not academic, the H index is one metric of, publications. I have international reputation in many things. I have very, important professional positions. But still, this stuff isn't just that happened to me 20 years ago. This is stuff that has happened throughout my career. Stuff that happened this year, stuff that happened this week. And I'm not making that up. Nothing happened today, but it's a Sunday and I've been home. Right? And Izzy and I had a conversation, and we had like an hour and a half conversation, pre-conversation, and then we had, an hour and 40-minute recorded conversation. And so, there's a little, if you want to see some more details of some of the things I'm talking about, you could check out, Izzy and I's conversation. If you haven't had enough of this, would like to hear another hour and 40 minutes when this is done. And I think Abby and I are going to record something. I believe Esma and Manor have recorded something. I don't know, Jen and I might, Patrice and Bria might, who knows? We're going to have some more that you can look at. But I'll just tell you a couple stories. And these are all things that I can 100% prove in writing, and for which I get absolutely no action whatsoever, or either prove in writing or recording, or there were many witnesses, like it happened in a department meeting or something like that. Just this year, there was a proposal for a master's in AI. And, if you checked out our research panel or you check out my research publications, you'll find I have an international reputation in AI. It's just a fact. I'm not bragging. It's just a fact. And I was left off the MS in AI proposal. And I had someone in a department meeting say that my work is not technical enough. It's not rigorous enough. And that is something that many women get. I have a degree in computer science from one of the top 4 universities in the world for computer science. I have a higher H index than anyone else in my department. I've built operating systems, for God's sake. You don't get much more programming intensive than that. I have a degree in math. You don't get much more mathematical rigor than that. Just because any given problem, I don't think programming or math is the solution to that one problem. The point is to solve problems. That happened to me this year. And it had to go outside of my department to get my name put on that MS in AI proposal and to get my courses included. That's just the facts. It's all documented in email. That's nothing I'm making up. That happened this year. I also was the driving force behind the CS PhD program, and credit was given to someone else. I can 100% prove that. I was the one who taught the first cyber computer security class at Clarkson. And when there was a like $600,000 grant for computer security, it was given to someone who asked to borrow my undergraduate textbook in computer security. And then that person was promoted and given a research award. I am not making this up. And just this very week, I had administrators say to me that people think I'm too aggressive. And I'll tell you, in the last year, there have been multiple instances, again, that I can prove in writing or recording, or many people were present, where someone would say something very aggressive and factually untrue and mean to me, a direct attack at me, and nobody would do nothing, crickets. But if I defended myself, if I pointed out what just happened, if I corrected the facts, if I insisted on civil and fact-based dialogue, then the conversation had to stop. That person needed to be protected from me. I'm not making this up. I can 100% prove it in writing. And I can't get anyone to take action about it. I have literally since I came back from my sabbatical, before I went on my last sabbatical, I mostly did I don't wish you any ill. I just wish you to exist far away from me. I'm going to focus on my research. I'm going to focus on my students. I'm going to focus on my classes, and I'm going to be excellent. But when I went on sabbatical, I had a lot of people say to me, what is going on? You are really good. Why are you still an associate professor? What is going on with that? And I had some women say that to me. And when I told them a little of the story, they said, oh, geez, we just ought to give up now. Like, if it's that hard for you, I'm just done. And when I came back from sabbatical, Jen Knack, who's on the panel, actually said something very similar to me. What is going on? And I just said to myself, you know what? It really just can't go down like this. It's not just about me. So in the last little bit, I have not been doing quite so much of just letting it roll. I've been a little more, there's always a balance between accepting the things you can't change and changing the things you can't accept. And in the last few years, I've taken a little different balance there. There's no one right balance for everyone. But I'm asking for acknowledgement and apologies and change. And I'm asking that facts matter. That when I can show something in writing, or many people witnessed it or recording, that action should be taken. And, just this week when someone said I was, I was too aggressive, I said, did they give you a specific example? Can you give me an example of what you mean? No. So that's the situation. Facts that I have, ironclad facts I have, no one cares. Well, that's not that no one cares, but the people who could do something about it don't care. And what they do care about is rumors, unsubstantiated things that's a little hard to take. I would like that to be different for my daughter, for my students, for my friends, for my colleagues. I would like the facts to matter for you. I'd like the facts to matter for everyone. And I'd like people to take enough time to consume the facts and then take action on those facts. I don't think that's too much to ask. But it does appear to be a lot to ask because it doesn't happen very often. Okay, Abby, your turn.
Okay. So a lot. So, when I was watching this movie for the first time, I think when I was trying to apply it to my own life and reflect, I was shocked by how many of the things they listed, of the examples that were shown in the film, that I resonated with. And I think for me, in my day-to-day life, I have allowed myself to become desensitized to many things just to kind of get through the day. Because I think it is a tax. It is a physical, mental, emotional tax on our energy, on our space, on our ability and capacity to do other things. And so sometimes even things that really matter, really hurt me, I have to kind of put them aside or choose between fighting those things or getting things accomplished. And that is just tragic to reflect on and realize how much I do that. And even when I do have the extra space and the energy to fight things, like Gina said, it seems like the facts don't matter. It feels like people would rather keep others feeling comfortable than hold people accountable for the harm they do to others. And that comes at the cost of, people like the people on this panel, and I'm sure many of the people who are listening right now, of we're sacrificing keeping them comfortable by not holding them accountable, by allowing ourselves to be hurt again and again. And that's really hard to take. And yeah, you would think when you can lay down the evidence that, you know, it's not about vilifying people. It's not about, you know, getting revenge. It's about, you know, justice and equity and, you know, making space for everyone in your community. And I think when I don't know, when we're not doing that, we're sacrificing so much possible growth and change. When we're not willing to face it, when we're willing to stay in the denial, there's no room left for growth or change.
Thank you, Abby. And, you know, I was struck by what Nancy Hopkins said, you know, the woman who went around measuring the labs. She said, I just wanted to do science. And I needed a place to put my fish. And they told me, and I said, you know, I'm a senior faculty member and there's junior people who have smaller labs and I don't know if they need them. I need it. And they said, that's not true. So she went around and measured things in this, like, really, like, did tons of work to measure them. And she brought the data and they basically wouldn't even look at it. They said, it still doesn't matter. And she said, that was what turned me into a radical. I don't think it's that radical to want the facts to matter. And I'll tell you that when Izzy and I talked about this stuff, maybe Izzy's going to say all things on her own, but she said of what I told her, a great line, which I keep thinking of now. She said, you were criticized for disrupting the tolerated harms. So there's a set of harms that we tolerate. We say, oh, that person was just having a bad day, or, you know, let's not hold them to account. Those are tolerated harms. So tolerated harms equals not aggressive. Disrupting of tolerated harms, that's what equals aggressive. That's not okay. Thanks for that line, Izzy, by the way. I love that. And now, Izzy, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think when I was saying that too, I was thinking like, systems of oppression. So those things are tolerated. So when you disrupt them, people are very unhappy with you. I will say maybe I'm just not as, I'm going to start here and say first, I have not experienced as much as the below the water iceberg things, and weirdly like more of the above. But I think it's partially because of the awesome bosses and mentors I have. So I work for the Chief Inclusion Office, which means like I work for Bria and Patrice, which is awesome. And I work for Gina. And so like I'm always surrounded by like incredible women who are doing really important work as like bosses and mentors. So that feels like sometimes a shield from some of those other things that I would probably be experiencing more if that wasn't the case in terms of like who my mentors are. And I specifically, when I was applying to grad school, I only looked at like women and non-binary folks. And I was just like, I'm just not interested in having a man as a PhD advisor, period. And I don't know, like, so I'll start there and say that it's, I have experienced some of the below the waterline thing, but it's more been with other students. So it hasn't been the same power dynamic as when it's with your boss or administrators or things like that. Although I'm weirdly experiencing it more now, but it's with a female professor. So it's like confusing. So I will say one thing that I think I have maybe a little bit of, not a different view on, but I'm in a peer support group for sexual assault survivors. Like we meet every week. And we sort of jokingly say the bloodlust is strong, like all the time, because we're pissed. So I'm pissed. And I am pissed for myself. I'm pissed for other people. And I think that, I don't think vilify is the word I'm looking for, but I'm certainly not afraid to call someone out if I think they're doing something harmful. And I don't think that that's aggressive. I think that like, I don't know, I was thinking about that when I was watching The Picture of Scientists. Like, I don't know, I think there's so many, I don't know how to even say it. I was thinking about Adam in Picture of Scientist. And I honestly wanted to slap his face. And because, like, you know, he's like, you didn't show it to me. You didn't show it to me. And it's like, you watched her weeping on the ground, get rocks thrown at her while she was going to the bathroom, and like fan blown in her face, but like she didn't show it to you enough. Like, what is that? You know, like, or, you know, saying things like, well, me and my friends would never do this, so we're just shocked. I think that that's another thing that I think anytime anyone is shocked by anything related to a system of oppression, I just get very angry because, like, ugh. Anyways, so I was watching that and I was getting angry. And I think there are a lot of men like that in my life, not so much that I work with, but that I know and are friends with, or family members or whatever, who feel, and not even just men, like, you know, about other identities I hold. So I'm autistic, so members of my family who are neurotypical, like, they're shocked by things that I experience, or even from each other. Like, I don't know, I had someone in my family tell me that someone else was autistically good at something like me, inferring that they're smart, not realizing that was offensive. Or, you know, a parent asking me not to tell family members that I am queer because, like, they wouldn't like that. And so I think about those. I guess those are some of the below the ice things, and some of the above the ice things that I was thinking about, maybe more so, like, abusive situations that maybe wouldn't have. So I'll just say I've experienced a lot of sexual violence to the point that I failed out of school my sophomore year of college, and I took a couple years off, and then I was bartending for a while, and then I went back to school at community college. And sometimes I think that, like, yes, the sexual violence is this above the ice, like, big thing that everyone hears rape and they know it's wrong, but then there wasn't support afterwards. And maybe had I experienced support afterwards, like, I wouldn't have dropped out of school. And so I think that's another piece of it that we don't talk about as much, is it's not just this adverse event, it's that it's constant. Like, you know, I read that stupid Minnesota case yesterday where it, like, can't be third degree, it has to be fifth degree because she got herself drunk or something like that. And, like, that ruins my weekend. Now I don't want to do work. I don't feel productive. I'm pissed. I want to go break things. And the bloodlust is strong. And I don't know. So I think that, like, it's constant, like, it's constantly coming in from all these different angles. My first semester at Clarkson, that was when, like, this whole Brett Kavanaugh thing was going down. You know, hearing about Cuomo, hearing about Trump, hearing about Biden, like, all of these cases of sexual violence, it's re-traumatizing every time. Every time I talk about it, it's re-traumatizing. I'm, like, sweating right now. So I guess I'll just say I was watching it and I was angry. And I was angry for myself and I was angry for other people. And I know that we all sort of experience it in different ways. Like, maybe, like I said, I don't experience the same things that Gina experiences in department meetings, and like, being really embedded in that. And I'm really shielded by working for women, basically. Or I don't experience things that, like, Bria's talking about because I'm a white woman, so I'm not experiencing that extra layer of racism. And so, like, I think it's important that we all support each other and, like, our different experiences. And I'm angry for all of us. And I guess the change that I want is, I want to be able to be angry without seeming aggressive, without seeming like I'm vilifying people, without seeming like I'm canceling people or whatever. Honestly, I think cancel culture is, like, not really real. So that's some of it. Like, I think if there was, like, a step one, it would be like, can you let us just talk about this, and can you just be quiet for a second and, like, listen, without getting, like, scared off just by hearing us say that maybe you did something harmful, or maybe that we experienced something harmful, and maybe that makes you feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that you're unsafe. or that were being aggressive. So I don't know. Maybe that was a little bit of a weird rant because I'm like talking about trauma, so my brain's like in like 20 different different directions. But that's something that I wanted to say is like, I'm mad. The bloodlust is strong, and that's it. And I don't feel like it's over. Like I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of where I am, and it's still, I think about like my abusers and my assaults like every day. It impacts me every day. It impacts me with every new case that comes out. I have to take breaks from school. When I found out my abuser was running for office, my research got pushed back by like 5 months. So I expect that will happen in the future. And I think that people need to acknowledge that this is like a lifelong struggle. And that doesn't mean I'm not strong, but I also don't want to like put the narrative of like, I was raped and now I'm strong and now it's over and everything's great. Cause like, it's not great and I'm pissed. And so I just want to be able to be that way and like have that feel legitimate and not like, I don't know, dramatic or something.
Thank you for that, Izzy. I know that's not easy to talk about any of this. And I know when you and I talked, we talked about not feeling a pressure to forgive somebody, you know, not having that be an expectation or like, I said, I'm sorry, now get over it. You know, yeah. Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, it's hard to go after you, Izzy. You've said so many powerful things. Thanks for everybody being so open and honest in your experiences. I guess, Izzy, like you, I've also had many amazing, strong women as mentors. So I feel like I was kind of shielded from a lot of these things for a very long time. And I look back on my training and I'm just even more grateful. I'm so glad that I could be grateful in the moment for the strong women who are leading the way and kind of normalizing all the different aspects of being an academic, of being in science. And I feel really grateful for those women. But I also think there's so many women who have internalized the stereotypes and the expectations and some of the problems that we're talking about, that their bias comes out when we don't check ourselves, right? And so I guess one of the changes that I would like to see is for women to be able to lift each other up in open spaces. Like, I think this particular panel is so powerful for me. I feel pretty emotional about it. You know, the support that we are giving to each other, the comments of support, you know, I think that means so much. And I'm constantly surprised when we support each other in such deep, powerful ways, right? And I think that's because it's not typical. We often do this in private spaces. And so even for this panel to be something that is quite public is really kind of shattering the norm. And so that's a change that I would like to see, for this to be more typical, and for us to support each other rather than competing against each other. I think that that's something that will change the way every field works if we can do that. Because a lot of times I think women compete against each other because our space is so limited. There's only so many seats at the table. There's only so much airspace that we can take up during meetings. And so we often have to step on each other in order to get that airspace. And seeing us being able to amplify each other's voices, to create more space for each other, to say, you know, can you say that again? I didn't quite hear that, right? And to keep doing that until we don't have to anymore. I hope that's a change that can happen. I also really hope that we can shift the system and the structure so that we can bring our whole selves to work, right? I think listening to people's stories, not just tonight, but, you know, across my career so far, there's so many times that I feel women having to compete within their own goals and within their own elements of identity. I want to be a strong scientist, but I also want to be a really freaking awesome mom, right? I really want to show up for, you know, my classes, for my students, for, you know, my trainees, for my colleagues, but I also hope someday to be able to show up for my kids' games and their recitals. And how do you do both? And I feel like right now we have to pick, or we feel this pressure to be amazing at everything, because if we show 1 ounce of weakness, then everything about who we are is questioned. All of our competence in all domains of our life is questioned. And I don't know, I think as we start taking more space and filling seats in leadership, I hope we can really re-envision what our business, our science looks like. You know, is it having more daycares? Is it having more flexible work periods? Is it somehow really having like a certain number of hours that we tap out after, so that we're not putting kids to bed and then going back to work for hours and hours? I know as somebody who doesn't have children yet, I'm quite nervous about trying to balance parenthood with being a good scientist, because it doesn't seem sustainable. And I just hope that we can get to a point where women don't have to be strong all the time, even as they're feeling pain or hurt or pressure, right? I hope that we can let ourselves be who we are in whatever moment, have a bad day, and not worry about the ramifications down the line. And then to bring that shift into meetings too, I've been in more meetings recently over the past year, probably thanks to some Zoom calls, right? I'm ready to be done with those and go back to in person. But the thing that I take away is when these meetings are primarily women, they have a different tone than when they're led by men. And I see some of you reacting, and I really appreciate that, because sometimes I feel like, am I just making this stuff up? Like, is it me? Like, maybe I am super biased now because I've been trying to read and study this more, but it is like markedly different, right? And I think it's cooler. I love my meetings with women. I feel like we connect with each other and we get the stuff done, right? We make progress in science. We make progress in figuring out how to be better at our jobs, in our roles. And so I don't know how we shift those things, but I hope we can keep having these conversations and being raw, without second guessing and ruminating after we get off the call, knowing that our perspective really matters and that it's valid, and that we don't have to duck into closed doors to realize that other women are feeling similar to what we are. So those are kind of my big 3 things that I'd like to see change. And I think that is a lot about changing those associations that they talked about with the IAT, right? They're so quick to come to mind that a lot of times we don't even realize unless we're actively trying to challenge what we've learned about in society. I think some of it even starts outside of our workplaces with children's books, right? I am so excited to hear about kids who are surprised to have a male physician. Like, oh, I didn't know boys could be doctors. I don't want it to shift all the way that way, right? I think that representation is important, but to see it kind of flipped a little bit and see the surprise that people have when they realize, like, oh, well, that's not true. It shouldn't be that way. Kind of helps with the swing of normalizing the role of women and other traditionally marginalized individuals. So yeah, hopefully we can see these shifts. I thought the film was pretty powerful. And I hope that we keep talking about it even well after this week is over, because it's important. It's important. Yeah.
Deep breath. Thank you all for doing that hard work and engaging on those topics. That is not easy stuff. And And thank you all for being here to listen. I think there is a rush to hush up hard stories for a lot of reasons. To not listen, because it requires some action when you do. It requires a response. And when you've consumed the information, you know, there's a call to justice. There's a call to be better. And yeah. I would love to open it up to comments and questions from our attendees. But before I do that, I would like to read a poem. I'd like to read a poem that I wrote for my daughter. It's a part of a collection of poetry, Playing Hard to Get and Other Sins. I love that title. And the first section is advice for my daughter. And this poem is called More or Less. More or Less. I spent a chunk of my life trying to get others to love me by being more. Sparkling, talented, dynamic. I learned the hard way that most people prefer women who are less. Lighter hair, lighter eyes, lighter skin, lighter body, frightened, diminished, quieter, smaller, reliant, less capable, less sure, less challenging, less of everything. A pale, blank slate, ready to be painted on. Easy to impress, ready to compliment, ready to cheer, waiting to be rescued. I don't want this to surprise you like it did me. I don't want you to take it personally like I did. I want you to be the best you can possibly be. I want you to be toweringly wonderful, imposing, intimidating in your splendor. I wish you to fill up your potential to seam busting dimensions. And I wish for you a few rare gems who will love you best when you are more. And with that, we would be happy to open it up to comments, questions, observations of any kind. It's a lot to think about. We've had a number of comments and things in the chat. I've watched it as it goes by a bit, but I'll look forward to reading back over it when I can focus on it a little more.
Looks like Lorraine, do you have your hand raised?
Lorraine, would you like to?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Gina. And
Hi,
hi,
Lorraine.
friends and colleagues. So I did make a few points in the comments about this, but I wanted to amplify that verbally. this is something that I've actually researched for quite some time on another part of my research field outside of privacy and technology, in studying women in STEM careers and also teaching about leadership. But one of the important things, especially after hearing so many of these stories, not only the frustration, the anger, the pain that comes through these stories, is to let ourselves and allow ourselves to recognize that these are not individual our problems. It's not things that we need to fix about ourselves. And it may not even be things we need to fix about that one person who has harmed us or insulted us or violated us. I view this as a cultural issue, particularly in cultures of science, practice, which is what we're talking about here. And that these cultures continue to allow these behaviors to operate, so that when Gina shares her examples, something happens and yet nobody else says anything to come to her defense or to say what is going on there. These are parts of a very significant part of the problem. Some of it is because there's still not a critical mass of women in these fields. And until that critical mass is reached, it's still pushing against the tide, if you will. Some of it, as somebody mentioned in the comments, is generational, in that you may have leaders who are of an older generation and are still expecting that culture should operate in the same way that they did in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, and we're way past that. So anyway, there's lots of things that I would be happy to talk about, but the most important message I want to send is this is not something that we need to fix about ourselves. This is not a pain that we need and a burden that we need to carry until things get better. But we should collectively be willing to say, how can we change that culture? How can we let others recognize that we have a collective responsibility to make a change, to bring us into the third decade of the 21st century, and see that others are not feeling this way, that they're not being held back, that they're not being violated in these ways, because we're willing to change the culture. And we being a very large we, all of us, not just the women, but the women and the men, and everybody who's a part of that culture. So just some quick comments on that. Thanks for letting me speak, Gina.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you. Patrice, would you like to?
Yeah, I was, when Izzy had mentioned, how she felt about Adam, I was kind of sort of feeling the same kind of way. And even, what bothers me about that, even with Dr. Nancy, as far as her MIT report and all the statistical data that she and her colleagues had, gathered over that 5-year period, it still took the president of the school. I mean, they could have still stopped her and had stopped her and, her colleagues previously, but it still took that president to believe in her, or to have the courage to say, okay, this is wrong. And Adam didn't have that courage because Adam was worried about, the trajectory of his career, even though, deep down he knew it was wrong. It still took that courage of a man to say, and I'm very bothered by that. That's a change I'd like to see. That we matter enough that I don't need, that approval from this man.
I'd like to see that too. Yetunde, you have your hand up, I think, yes?
Yes.
My friend.
Hi, Jenna. So, this is a very wonderful thing you are putting together. This is a rare opportunity for women to come around like this and hear from each other. And thank you, all of you amazing women, and for sharing your story. You are such an inspiration to the whole world. And this is a step, a leap forward again in getting there, because we are very far away from getting to that point where the world will be able to accept us for whom we are. We already have what it takes. Like I was saying before, we all have brain. There is no, I mean, the fact that you are a woman or you're a man or any gender does not make you, I mean, it doesn't change your brain. We all, I mean, so all it takes is the acceptability. But unfortunately, we discovered that just like Jen, I think it was, yes, it was Jen that was saying something about we women should lift each other's hand up. We should learn to watch each other's back, because we feel the same pain. We struggle with the same thing. And what we struggle with, what we all share in common, being a woman, being a professional. And so sometimes in our society, you find out that some women are even being prosecuted for supporting other women, for helping other women. And the fear of, because not all of us are as strong as Jenna, not all of us are as bold, right? So the fear of maybe being intimidated or not losing my job, or women are dying silently, they are being harassed, and they are not speaking out, as we're hearing from people tonight. And so we should, as much as possible, watch out for each other. If we notice something that is not right, if she's not able to speak out, we should step out and speak out on her behalf. We should encourage her to speak out. And by this, when the noise is more, the people at the other side will be able to adjust. Like I was putting in the chat, it is far worse in developing countries where there is no law, there is no rule, there are no legislation. There are some things people want to do here, but they can't do because they know they will be in for it if they discriminate, or if they sexually harass women and girls. And some still don't care. I mean, I don't know. They just do it and face the consequence. They just do it and don't get caught, or they just do it and take the chance, right? But in many developing countries, they do it and they are proud of it. They speak out. I mean, it's just the norm, and because they know no one is going to punish them for doing it. And it's so sad that, like also we realize that these men are, there are some good ones among, I mean, not everybody is bad, but majority is like they have this bias. They don't want to be, they feel threatened by a woman, a female competitor, and they feel, and if you look at the chain, the thing is that it is actually a kind of ripple effect of within our society, because that is what they grow up to know domestically. Even in our domestic system, the woman is not accepted. Sometimes when the woman has this very cool professional job and the husband is not so cool, then life becomes very difficult from that woman, even from home. Some of us have this experience, and it's so sad that you just struggle and eventually you still arrive and you still arise, and then you are even scared to come back home just because you are working. And you will see that the circle is like, if a man is like already feeling threatened by his woman in the house, or feels that no, you shouldn't work, I mean, you shouldn't be a professional, you are just made to be in the kitchen, or you are made to bear children, such a man is most likely going to intimidate other women in the workplace. So, and such a man is most likely going to train his children to be oppressive, not to be receptive of women in the workplace, or maybe to discriminate. So, and then it goes on in circle and circle around us. But the best way is to speak out, just as we are doing. And I hope this is going to reach as many audience as possible. If we, especially in the developing community, if we have a takeaway from here, and then we're able to let other women know, because some women don't even know that they can speak out for their rights. Even as we speak in the developing country, there are some things that, despite the lawlessness and everything, you don't have a right anywhere to sit on someone's promotion if the person has done the right thing. We are just sitting on the promotion because the person is a woman. But they think you are not going to speak out. They think you already feel intimidated and you are afraid. So, but if they know you are going to speak out, if they know that you are not going to take, even when you speak out and they don't do anything, speak again, let somebody speak on your behalf. And that's why we say, women, we need to work together, not just because you have your promotion, you are rising, help the other people that are not able to. So when they see that there is this strong community of women supporting each other, I think the effect is going to be that it will water down the strength of this oppression that we are experiencing as women. I have a lot of story to share, but it's not for this meeting. And my friend knows a lot about me, Gina. So, the oppression is just too much, and we need to crush it. Just like I shared in the chat window, we need to prepare a future for the ones that are coming behind, because otherwise they will be afraid. If we can't help them now, if we can't speak out now, then they will still come into the same circle. We don't want that to happen. I was almost moved into tears when I saw these women speaking and their daughters, and I was like, wow, I don't have a daughter, but I have boys, and I have so many girls that I mentor. I would say that I have like tons and tons of female children because there are so many of them. And I just feel like this is so amazing. And I can't imagine people killing the spirit in these younger ones, people not letting them reach their potentials. It is not right. And we should do this to work together and see what we can do. And that will bring me to my final question. Maybe if the time is here, what can we do to help the developing countries? If we can have a conversation around that, I would be grateful.
That is a super important question. And I see Esma has her hand up as well, and she might have some thoughts in the space, but let me say one or two things. If anyone else would like to record a video as part of this collection, you don't have to be on the panel. If you want to record a video and add it to our collection, I would be honored. If anyone else here would like to do that, if you want to do it in conversation with one of us, just reach out. I would love to see us add to this collection of materials and maybe think of some other ways to amplify that collection. I don't know exactly what that might be, but let's just put that bug in our ears and think what it might be. And I'll say one thing that Jen and I, and also some other folks who are on the call right now have been doing in our local environment is we decided we were going to form a committee. We're not going to ask for permission. We informed them we were going to do it, to Patrice's point. And we said that we were going to be a group of people that would listen to people's stories of what happened. And if they had evidence, we would take the time to consume it. And especially when there is evidence that we think is actionable, if the powers that be are not listening because they won't take time to look at the evidence or they want to hush it away, that we will add our voices to say, we consumed that evidence, we listened to that, and we don't think you're taking enough action. And maybe that's a model that can spread. And another thing that we have been saying is that, at least in our university, when someone in authority witnesses or when they are presented with evidence, we want apologies from the perpetrators. And if they're not willing to, maybe you can't make them apologize. If they won't apologize, then we want a person in administration to say, I witnessed that. I saw that in writing. I saw the recording, whatever. And that is not acceptable. They may not have apologized, but we acknowledge it happened. And we state that it is unacceptable. And when we get commitments to do that, that's one of the things that makes me aggressive, is that I remind people that they've made commitments to do things, or they've said they'll do things. And I ask again and again, and I'm persistent. Okay, Esma, I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really agree with what Yetunde said, that the female, especially females in developing countries who are being harassed, should report the things. But unfortunately, due to absence of legislations or whatever, when they hesitate to report, the reason is that they are the ones that will be pointed on. Like, they will be set responsible for that. Like, people say that, oh, she must have done something, that's why she suffered a lot. So this is the common dilemma in that society. So most of the girls that I have witnessed, like some of them, and they went through sexual harassment, and then they didn't report. The only fear was that they will be blamed on that instead of getting justice. So that was my point.
Yeah. Izzy?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you were saying as well. And I think I've been trying to more and more follow the see something, say something sort of like model for myself, at least for other people. Like I feel like I don't do that for when things happen to me as much, but it's easier for when it's other people. But I will say to Esma's point, I remember being like, when I was in middle school, a boy in my class was like harassing me online, sexually harassing me online, and saying pretty gross things. We were about 13. He got suspended because he was doing it on a school laptop. And so the school saw, and they, brought us together and our parents and talked about it, or his laptop I think actually the only thing that happened was his laptop got taken away. But I remember that, like, my dad was very disappointed in me that I allowed someone to speak to me that way. And like, that was how my parents responded to me, or my dad did, I'll say. I don't think my mom said much. So yeah, that has been my experience. Or when I've talked to friends or partners, like I had a boyfriend in college once ask me why I cared about sexual violence because I was a slut. Which maybe I shouldn't be saying on this recording, but whatever. That is what was said to me. So yeah, and I do think that us, even if it's not through these formal reports, like here, like this is us speaking up for each other and for ourselves now. Like, this is a version of that. And I'm happy to do those things. I don't think I'd ever, like, I don't know. I haven't reported formally the sexual violence that I've experienced. Actually, one time I did when I was 13, and then I got bullied by the police out of it, and I retracted it, and then everyone accused me of lying. But yeah. I guess I just say, yeah, it's such a tough thing because I think it takes so much bravery to say something, and I am so proud of everyone when they do, and I was not that brave, but I think more things like this, or more of us corroborating each other's stories and supporting each other, is really important. And yeah, I don't know. It was resonating what you're saying, Esma.
There's many times I haven't reported something because I really felt I was almost sure that the person I would have to report to would do nothing. Like I had good reason to believe that, or I had good reason to think it would just cause more trouble. And I don't think anyone should be blamed for that. If you assess the situation and don't feel safe to report to someone, no one should shame you for that. It's perfectly reasonable to look around and assess where you think you might get some support and help, and is that going to be likely to work. But I think the more in developing countries, in our country, in our little area, and wherever we can, when we can carve out spaces to say, it's safe for you to tell me your story and I will listen. And I will look with you at what you've got, and I'll try to brainstorm the best I can what path there could be to doing something real with that. And, somewhat to Patrice's point, I mean, like we're 51% of the population or more. I don't know. Like there's a lot of us. And, I also want this. There's also, I want this for everyone, not just women. I want facts to matter. I don't want people to be, harassed in any way. I think the more we can carve out spaces to take each other seriously and not blame one another for experiencing a problem. I think all of us can work on, when we hear someone is having a problem, we like Esma said, we might think, oh, well, maybe they did something, right? And we have to really push back on that narrative in our own heads as well as in society.
I think also, I think we've all said this a bit, is it is hard to get the strength to speak out and to spend the energy and the time to do that. And I think far too often when we do work up that time and energy and strength to do that we get told we're too sensitive, we're too emotional, we're mixing our emotions into technical situations, and we should just be separating them. And I don't think that's not okay. When harm is done, it's not okay to say, well, you shouldn't be mixing your emotions in here.
I can't tell you how many women I know who tell stories, basically almost like battle armor stories. Like you can't possibly think I'm sensitive because think of all of this I took without saying anything. Right? We should not have to arm ourselves that way, or carry around like this badge of honor that we took it. But the fact is, we are not being just sensitive. I also have a huge list of things that I can list that I took without ever complaining or making a big deal out of them. And so it does offend me when someone tries to make out that I'm being overly sensitive. Goodness sakes. Izzy?
And I just wanted to add this, I guess that I completely agree. And that I do think we have a responsibility to act in allyship with each other, especially on issues that will not be impacting us. So for example, I really appreciate it. My sister is my best ally in dealing with homophobic family members, and she's straight and she doesn't have to deal with it. And, or I'm white. And so when I see people particularly Black women experiencing racism, I am in a safer situation, and I think I have a responsibility to speak out. Or when people are being ableist, I really appreciate it when people speak up for me, or things like that. And so I do think that there's that difference. That's a different situation than something happens to me and I'm afraid to speak up. And I think that we also don't do that enough for each other. And sort of take acknowledgement of the different identities that we have and the differing experiences that we have because of it, and act in allyship with each other because of that.
That's a really good point, Izzy. Whew. Deep breath. I'm just going to be quiet a minute and see if anyone has things they want to say.
There's a question in the chat.
Are there institutional policies at Clarkson regarding harassment and hostile environments? It's interesting you should say that. As part of the NSF Advance Grant, there's supposed to be kind of a review of Clarkson's policies. We'll see if that happens. Some of us here on this call have offered to help with that process. There aren't policies about a lot of things, and I think thank you, Lorraine. That would be incredibly helpful if you could share Purdue's. That would be great. We didn't have an omnibudsman until recently. We didn't have chair review or even definition of chair responsibility. There's a lot of things that yeah. Izzy has a suggestion for an exercise that could ground us at the end. I think having the idea of a grounding exercise, something that feels like we put a little closure on this experience we've had, sounds like a perfect idea to me. Let's just pause one more minute and see if anyone has something they want to say. I'm deeply grateful to all of you for coming, especially the panelists, but everyone who spent some time to think about these things with us tonight. Izzy, suggest a grounding exercise, please.
Okay, so this is the favorite of actually my my survivor support group. So like if we're, sometimes things just get heavy and we're like, okay, we need to like shake it out and get like, I don't know. So the game is called Categories, and it's super simple. We just pick a category and then we go in alphabetical order and shout out the first thing that comes to mind. So, I mean, sometimes we go around the room and sometimes we all just shout it out. So, for example, if we chose animals, then maybe it would be like aardvark and then beaver and then cat or something like that. I don't know if that sounds good for everyone. It's usually kind of silly, and by the end, we feel a lot better. Does anyone have a category in mind?
We play categories at home. What do we play, Abby? We play.
It depends if we want to be easy or hard. Like there's harder ones. Like I don't know.
Play it differently, but yeah.
Flowers.
Yeah, flowers is a good one. Easier, okay. Flowers I find are difficult in other languages. I don't know, like flowers, plants, animals. When I am a learning Spanish speaker and I can wander easily into territory I don't know. I don't know. Someone suggests, okay, countries could be. Countries is a good one. What do you think? Yes? Okay. Countries. All right.
I'll start. Argentina.
Belarus.
Cameroon.
Denmark.
Egypt.
France.
Ghana.
Hungary.
Ireland.
Jordan.
Kuwait.
Lebanon.
Morocco.
Nigeria.
Oh. Oman.
Oh, nice.
Pakistan.
Poland. Oh, in Pakistan, yeah, for asthma and manure.
Qatar.
Good.
Russia.
Sweden.
Thailand.
Turkey.
India.
Uzbekistan.
Oh, nice.
Vietnam.
Realizing how bad I am at geography. Like, is Wales a country?
Western something or other. I'm sure there's something out there.
Should we call a lifeline? Google is our friend, right? So alphabetic list of countries. I'm gonna
Yeah, I think we're gonna need help with the next one too.
yeah, I think it was X that was pushing me over the edge.
Do you want to say cities are allowed as well for the last few?
Yeah. Western Sahara, nice job.
Regions or cities, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there are no countries that start with an X. Maybe I don't. The ex-Soviet Republic, Soviets.
yeah. X sounds counts too.
Okay.
Yemen.
Okay, now I can't play the last two because I got a list here. Why? There's only one.
Yemen.
And Z, there's two. At least in the list I'm looking at.
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Nice.
And
Zaire.
oh, Zaire? Is Zaire the other one?
Oh no, Zambia. So there must be more. Okay.
Because Zaire's not a country anymore, right?
Oh, maybe this list is correct. I don't know. Yeah.
It has a new name.
New name. Yeah.
Well, either way, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Grounding. I do that by myself sometimes if I'm like really upset or whatever. I don't know. It's just like the humbling and fun exercise.
Yeah, Gina and I do that when we take road trips or we're driving places. We also will play a game where we look for like letters on signs, and we got really good at doing it from Messina to Potsdam and back. So we know exactly where all the letters are. You have to hit them in that order, or otherwise you can't do it.
And when we do the alphabet game, what we do is you have to say all the ones that came before. So like you have to say Argentina. Okay, Argentina, Belarus. Argentina, Belarus. Like you have to then and yeah. But we're gluttons for punishment. And it's pastime in the car. That's pretty much the only time we do it, right? So we're just like trying to think of things to do.
Yeah, and then we get like harder categories when we need a challenge.
Okay. Thank you. I think we should all give ourselves a lot of credit for taking time to support one another in this way, to listen. I think we have done some of the change we want to happen this very night. That is meaningful to me, really, really meaningful to me. And I would like to say once again how grateful I am, especially to my fellow panelists for throwing in on this crazy idea of doing this and being so open to share your thoughts and to, I think we've given each other a great gift. I feel that way. And I thank you for that gift. Okay, keep an eye out for videos we record. Izzy and I already have one. I think we're going to have some more coming. And if any of you would like to add to that collection, either on your own or in conversation with me or anyone else, please reach out. I would be delighted to add some more stories. And I think I'll just add with stories matter. I think our stories really matter. And thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
Good idea.